What is up, my bodyweight warriors, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how you can make the pull-up more difficult if you don't have any weights lying about at home. Now, this is one of the biggest challenges with bodyweight training because adding weighted calisthenics, that is one of the best ways to progress and add strength pretty quickly. So I highly recommend you invest in weight. It's pretty cheap. You can pick it up on eBay, Gumtree, whatever is locally to you. It's generally relatively cheap to pick up, and you don't necessarily need a huge amount to get some good benefits for it when it comes to bodyweight training. However, let's say you're out traveling, you're on the road, you haven't necessarily got access to the usual equipment that you would use. How can you make pull-ups more challenging so that you can then stick to your standard workout goals and go at it in the same way? So I'm going to give you 3 ways today in which you can make the pull-up harder without adding weight. Way number 1 is to modify your form to perform something called an arch body pull-up. Now, the arch body pull-up is basically when we go into extreme retraction of the shoulder blades. That's when the shoulder blades come together. And instead of thinking about getting the chin over the bar, we instead think about pulling our sternum towards the bar. Now, full range of motion sternum pull-ups are actually incredibly hard to perform, much harder than standard pull-ups. In fact, it's very rare you see somebody perform it with great form. It simply puts you at a slightly more disadvantaged position and makes the exercise harder. I guarantee, just go away, go try some pull-ups, go try it with a normal form, crack out whatever your set is, and then go try it with the arch body form, and I guarantee you'll probably achieve less than half the reps. I personally like this variation a lot and think it has a decent amount of transfer over to things like the front lever as well. The second way we can modify the pull-up is with pauses. Now, we can add pauses into each of our reps, and it's going to basically increase that time under tension, but it's also going to make the exercise and the reps harder itself. One of the famous ways to do this in the kind of climbing community is something called the Frenchie. Now, I've done a whole video on the Frenchie, which is, a cluster of 4 pull-ups with pauses in different positions, and I'll link that one down below if you want to watch that full tutorial. But essentially, we can kind of add pauses in wherever. We could add pauses at the top, we could add pauses halfway down, we could add pauses at the bottom, you could add it on the concentric, or you could add it on the eccentric, basically wherever, whenever in each rep. A good rule of thumb is you generally want to add pauses where you're weak in that movement. So for example, if you're weaker in the lockout portion of the movement, then you could add a pause at the top of your pull-up or chin-up. This is going to make it harder simply because you're spending more time on each rep, but it's a good way to increase the intensity or just mix up your pull-up training in general. The third and final way in which you can make pull-ups harder without adding weight is by just using one arm. So obviously, an extreme example, this would be the one arm chin-up. This would be the extreme level of how you can make the pull-up harder without adding any weight, simply because you're only using one arm and just minimal assisting with the other arm. So one option with these would be archer pull-ups. Initiate and perform the pull-up motion with one arm, and then you keep the assisting arm straight, so you do get some pull from it, but certainly not as much if you're performing a 2-arm pull-up. Another option would be mantle or uneven chin-ups, and this is if you have rings available to you or just conveniently 2 different height bars. Then this would be where you'd have a staggered grip, so where one hand is higher than the other, which means that you'll have to use one hand more throughout the entire range of motion than the assisting lower arm. And then you can simply perform some reps on one side and some reps on the other side. And again, this will make things harder. You could also just perform negatives of the one arm itself. You could pull up with 2 arms, lock off, let go of one arm, and do a nice, slow, controlled negative one arm chin up with the other arm. And that's kind of how you can make your pull-ups harder without adding weight. You have the arch body one, putting yourself at a bit of mechanical disadvantage, making things harder. You have adding pauses, extending that time under tension and making the rep harder in the weakest position that you have. And then the third and final option is just making it one arm only, basically. But that has been it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick and simple video of how you can make your pull-ups harder at home or wherever you are without any weight. It's definitely a useful one if you are traveling or just out and about and don't have access to the same equipment. If you enjoy this video, you know what to do. You can hit that thumbs up button and support the channel. If you have any questions about pull-ups or anything that I've mentioned in today's video, leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to get back to you in the comments. Whilst you're down there, you can also just hit that subscribe button and join the Bodyweight Warrior tribe. But that has been it for this week, guys. I'll catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week and peace.